Welcome to Baird Tech Presents. This is Mr. Rocha, and in today's lesson we are going to begin to create a balloon powered car on Tinkercad. So first thing I want you to do is to come to the Baird Symbolu page, the student Symbolu page, and click on Tinkercad. And when you do that, you're going to click on Join with a Nickname. And you're going to type in your first name and then the last 4 digits of your student ID number and click on That's Me. Next, you'll go to Learn Projects and then scroll down and select See All Projects. And you're looking for the project that is called Balloon Powered Car. And here it is. You click on it. And here are the 4 lessons which you will go step by step to complete. Okay? So pause the video, do this step, and then come back. Welcome back to Baird Tech Presents. This is Mr. Rocha. And this is the very first lesson in the balloon powered car series. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on create the body of the car. Sometimes it takes a minute to load up. Alright. And now once it loads up, on the left hand side over here you'll notice that you will find the directions, the steps necessary to complete this first lesson. Okay, let me take a minute to remind you of the different parts of this work plane. So you have this work plane right here in the middle. You have the snap grid, which is right here, and you can change your accuracy. Okay. Some other tools are up here that are very important. The mirror. Probably the most important tool that you're going to be using will be the group and ungroup and the align tool. Okay. You can also use this icon here to rotate around, but if you have a mouse on your computer, you can use the mouse to do that by right clicking and moving around. Okay, so let's get started. It says here for the first thing to do is to create. This is what we're going to do. In this project, you will design a body of your 3D car. You'll create a path for air to exit the balloon that will power your car, and you'll create the wheels. All right. So you're going to click on Next. You have to scroll down, and it wants you to place a box on the work plane, and it wants you to size the box to be 20 millimeters wide, 60 millimeters long, and 20 millimeters tall. Okay, so let's take a minute to talk about this, because this is sometimes very confusing for students. Now, looking at the image, you notice right away that it is a rectangle, so it's not going to be hard for a lot of you to go, oh, I can just make it look like this. But let's talk about these dimensions. Okay, so again, it's the dimensions are going to be based off of your perspective. So if I'm going to make this 60 long, I can type in that box and hit 60. From the perspective that I'm looking at this right now, this is the length of my box. What if I was turned around this way? Right? Now this becomes my length. Right? So again, it's based off of your perspective. So I'm going to make it 60 millimeters long. I believe it already comes 20 tall and 20 wide. There you go. Okay? So click on the next step. Then it says to place a cylinder place a cylinder on the work plane. So I'm going to grab a cylinder and I'm going to make it a diameter of 11 millimeters and 25 tall. Well, let me get the tall first. Type in 25, enter. In order to get the diameter of a cylinder, the depth and the length have to be the same, or the width and the depth. So this has to be 11 and 11. And now I have a cylinder. Okay, it's perfectly round. And you click on, and it says change the cylinder to a hole. Now, before we go on, one of the things that you can do with shapes in Tinkercad is that you can change some of the elements. Okay, so for example, the sides. This cylinder has 20 sides right now. I want you to take a look and see at the difference. See how these edges are. You can see them very distinctly, right? 12 edges. To make it more cylindrical, change the sides to 64. And you can't even see the 64 sides, but they're there. You can just see how the shape is changing. Okay? So make it 64. Even though it doesn't tell you that, make it 64. Okay. Then the next step is align the holes. So it says rotate the cylinder 90 degrees so the long direction crosses long ways through the body. Okay. Again, perspective. Okay. So I'm going to click here. I'm not clicking on that cone, I'm clicking on that red arrow up the top, and I'm going to type in 90. And it says select the box and the cylinder and align them to the bottom of the box. Okay, so it wants me to take this cylinder and align it to the bottom of this box. So I'm going to draw a selection around all of them. I'm going to come up to the align tool. And again, it all depends on where your perspective of how this is going to look, right? So I want this to look, there it is. It's inside the box, but it's not at the bottom of the box. So I'm going to undo, well, I can bring it over here. You see what I just did? Okay. And then I'm going to click on this bottom one. And now the cylinder is at the bottom of the box. And it says now rotate the view to look at the model from the side, which I'm doing. Select the cylinder and press the left arrow key on the keyboard 5 times. This will move the hole 5 millimeters to the left away from the end of the box. Okay. And one thing I forgot to do is I forgot to make the cylinder a hole. I was talking to you guys and I forgot to make it a hole, so I'm going to make it a hole. Oops. I don't want to bring in a hole. I want to make a hole. So I come up here and make it a hole. Okay. So now it says move this cylinder to 5 millimeters to the left. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to make sure that my snap grid is at 1. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With the cylinder still selected, use the black arrow on the top to lift the cylinder up and away from the work plane 3 millimeters. So here is that black arrow that they're talking about. And I'm going to move it up 3. 1, 2, 3. This is the height off of the work plane. And it says to continue to the next step. Now, it says duplicate this axle and change the snap grid to 5. So to duplicate it, you can come up here and click on duplicate and repeat, and it's in there. You may not see it, but it's there. And then change this to 5. Okay. Oops. Let me go back. I skipped one apparently. How did I do that? Okay. Oh, I did that because I didn't finish reading all the directions. Okay. Now change the snap grid to 5 millimeters. Rotate the view to look at the car from the side, which I already have, and press the left arrow 8 times to move the second axle to the opposite end of the car. So because I changed the snap grid to 5, every time I hit the arrow, it's going to move 5. I believe that was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Alright, select all the shapes and group them into a single item. So it wants you to do this. You can draw a selection. I draw a selection around it, but you really could. This is a glitch I don't like in Tinkercad. I can never get this to ungroup. So I bring a box out here and then I'll delete it. Okay. There are 2 ways to do this. The first way is to select an object, hold down the Shift key, and then select the other objects. Okay. Again, I can never get it to do what I want. So, alright. And the second way, which I prefer to do, is to draw a selection around it and then group it. And continue to the next step. Okay. So, the next step is asking us to bring out a wedge. So, scroll down over here. Bring out a wedge. And we're going to place the wedge on the work plane, and we're going to size it to be 5 millimeters long, 5 millimeters tall, 20 millimeters wide, and 40 millimeters long. Again, perspective, right? So I'm going to rotate this around. I got lucky that time. I went 90. Okay, so again, the perspective, because I want it to look like this picture here, or at least oriented in the same way. So I'm going to make this 5 tall. So click on the height, 5, enter. 20 wide. That's already set to 20 wide. And 40 long. Okay, so now this is very interesting to note here. I clicked on this red. I clicked here on the right hand side. If I click on the left hand side and type in 40, watch what happens. It moves back. Okay. If I click on the front end and type in 40, you got it. The front, it'll move to the right. So it doesn't really matter which one you choose in this particular case, but sometimes when you're building things and you want something to move in a certain direction, it's nice to remember that you can click on either one of these. Okay. All right. And change the wedge to a hole. So I click on it and make it a hole. And you go to the next step. It says rotate the wedge 180 so that the flat face that is on the work plane is facing upwards. So what it wants you to do is it wants you to take this flat face right here, this face right here, and it wants you to rotate it 180 degrees so that this face is facing upwards. So again, perspective, I'm going to look at this and I can choose to rotate it either this way, which is not going to change that orientation. I can change it this way, which is going to flip it from left to right or right to left. But if I orbit around here and I change it this way, now this is going to change top to bottom. And I'm going to type in 180 because I'm not going to mess with trying to do it. And there we go. And now I'm at 180. Okay. Select both shapes and group them to a single item. So watch. This is already selected. I'm going to hold down the control key and click on the box. I'm sorry, the shift key, and click on the box. And now they're both selected, and I'm going to align them. Okay. I'm going to align them, so I want it to look like this picture up here at the top. So I'm going to move it to the top, and it needs to go to the back of that. So I'm going to put it there. Okay, so it's inside there. Now I'm going to click on this back one, and there we go. All right, so now it is just the way it looks like in the picture. All right, and then it says go to the next step. Oh, select them and group them to a single item. So I'm going to select them both and group them to a single item. And there you go. All right. Click on the next step. The next one brings us to adding a nose, the nose wedge. So again, bring out a wedge. And I can see from the picture here that I'm going to need to move my wedge, orient it so that it's facing the same direction that it is here. Okay, so I'm going to do that here. Now what should I have done? Yep, see 90. I'm going to type in -90, -90, enter. Okay. And then it wants me to make the wedge 20 tall, which I believe it already is. And 20 wide. It's already 20 wide. 15 tall. So I'll change that to 15. And then it wants it to be 10 long. Again, perspective. I'm looking at it from this angle, so this is the length. Okay. And then it says rotate it, already rotated at 90 degrees. Select both shapes and let's align it. Okay, so I'm gonna select both shapes by holding down the shift key and then aligning it. Oh, that's no good. That's no bueno. So I'm going to move it like this, and then it says let the snap grid to 1. So make the snap grid 1. Okay. And again, I can't take that snap grid off, so I can't take off that selection. So now I'm going to do it like this, and I'm going to bring it back. And I'm just using the arrow keys, okay, to bring it back in here. Now notice something here. I want you to notice something. If I move this away, you can see that gap, right? And you see this blue line here? That's letting you know that there's an edge there. And now they're touching. Okay? And then it says, now that they're touching, select both shapes. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to group them to a single item. Oops, I ungrouped. Don't do that. Okay, so I grouped them to a single item. And then it says you are done. You are done. So you're going to click on done. Now here's something before you click on done. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to select it all and copy. There's copy right here. Just copy in the event that something goes wrong. So you click on copy and then click on done. And that's it for this step. take the time to pause this video and do these steps correctly, okay? Welcome back to Baird Tech Presents. This is Mr. Rocha, and this is the second lesson in the balloon-powered car. This is the lesson in which we are going to create the balloon connector, or as I like to call it, the blowhole. So at the end of the last lesson, I had you copy your car. And the reason I did that is because sometimes, not often, but sometimes, when you come to the second part of this lesson, your car is not there. For whatever reason, it glitches and the car does not come over, and you're like, what's going on? Right? Then you're perplexed. What do I do? Right? So let me delete this. If this is what happens when you move on to the second lesson, because you paid attention to what I told you to do in lesson 1, you just come over here to the clipboard where it says paste, and you paste your car. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to move it over here. Alright, so let's begin. It says to place a work plane on the flat area on the top of the body, near the back of the body. So this is a work plane, and what it wants you to do is it wants you to put a work plane right here at the top. Notice how the work plane will move to the contour of the car. So it's not asking you to put it at an angle like this. It's asking you to put it at the back. Okay, so I'm going to put it here in the back. And then it says to drag a cylinder to this work plane. So we're going to grab a cylinder, drag the cylinder, and it says to make it 20 millimeters in diameter and 10 tall. So first thing I'm going to do, because I really truly want a cylinder, is I'm going to make it 64, and then I'm going to close this little shape up here. So I'm going to make it 10 tall, okay, and a 20 by 20, and it's 20 by 20. Okay. So I've done steps 1, 2, and 3. Now step 4 says place a second cylinder in the center of the previous cylinder. So I'm going to move it over. I'm using the arrow keys, by the way, just so you know. And I'm going to bring a second cylinder. I'm going to bring it in here. It's asking me to place a second cylinder in the center of the previous cylinder. Okay. And I'm probably not going to do it that way because it can be a little confusing. Let me undo that. I'm going to bring out the second cylinder here, and I'll bring it close to it because it's asking me to give it some dimensions, and I want to make sure that I'm changing the dimensions on the correct cylinder. So it wants me to make it 3 tall and 23 in diameter. And again, remember, to make the diameter, it has to have the same dimensions, length and width. Okay, there's my diameter of 23. And it says select both cylinders and align them vertically. Then align them to the top. Okay, so I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to align them vertically. So let's see here. See if I can do this. I already have an idea of what it wants it to look like, right? Here's the picture. Very slow today. Here's what it's going to look like. Okay, so I'm going to align them like this, and then turn around here. to the top. And I need them to line up just perfect. There we go. Okay, very good. So I did step 6, and I'm sorry, step 5. Step 6 says, with both cylinders selected, group them into a single object. Okay, so they're both selected. If I click off of it, they're both selected, so I'm going to group them. And it says continue to the next step. Now I can already see that that the cylinder is over the car, so I'm assuming that in the next step it's going to ask me to do that. Okay, so I'll click on next, and then we're going to add an angle under the lip. Okay. So it says place a cone. I'm going to come over here and find the cone. There's the cone. And rotate the shape 180 so that the flat surface is facing upwards. So again, I'm going to click here. I'm going to type in 180. Okay. And align the cone so it is touching the bottom of the lip and centered on it. So I'm going to select them both, hold down the shift key, and let's align them. Put them this way. Again with the alignment. Center. This way. Okay. Align the cone so that it's touching the bottom of the lip and centered on it. Okay, so no, wrong one. There we go. Almost. Looks like it should be. Looks like it's right inside there, but it's not touching the bottom of the lip. And that gives me the opposite direction that I want to go in. So I already know what it wants. I know the visual. So I'm just going to have to, again, grab a shape, bring it out here, delete it. Okay. It wants me to move this shape down. Oh, I forgot to size it. See? Size it to 23 millimeters in diameter and 12 tall. So let's make it 12 tall. And I'm going to rotate around it. 23 by 23. Okay. Now let me align them both. Let me try my alignment again. And there we go. Alright. My computer's dying. Nothing like having your computer die while you're working on it. Make sure your computer's always plugged in, boys and girls. Okay, so I can see from the image that it wants me to bring it down a little, so I'm going to bring it, oops. Don't want to do that. Okay, now that I have my computer plugged back in, I have my cylinder and the cone aligned, okay? And I can see from the picture, or even from the directions, that it's asking me to take this cone and put it under the lip of the cylinder that I created. So what I did is I just kind of moved it. Now let's see here. What's the height of that? Let me undo that one more time. There isn't a lot of guesswork here in terms of how far to move it down, okay? And I'll kind of explain that to you. Some of you probably already figured it out. I already know how far to move it down. Let me just select it all. I'm going to align it again so that the cylinder and the cone are inside of one another. There we go. That's the view I want. Okay? And again, bring out a shape that I don't need and delete it. Okay, so I'm gonna select the cone. Hopefully I selected the cone. Well, I didn't. I selected the cylinder, but that's okay. Let me undo that because it doesn't really matter whether I select the cone or the cylinder. I wanted the cone, but cylinder will work. I know that this is 10 thick or tall. So I just need to move this up 10. Looks like I only need to move it up 3. Okay. Now one thing I noticed and I forgot to do in the steps before is I forgot to, I'm going to ungroup this, I forgot to make this cylinder, I forgot to make the side 64 so that it's all smooth. Okay, I want it to be smooth. Now there is the lip. Okay, let me regroup this because I believe that's what it's going to ask us to do, to group it. And it's thinking. There we go. And now you can see that there is a smooth edge at the bottom. I'll rotate this along so you can see. There's a smooth edge right there. Okay? That smooth edge. That's so that the balloon can grasp it. Alright, so let me come back here. And then it says to continue on, I grouped them into a single shape and then now somewhere along the line I must have missed the direction that said to place them together. I don't know. It happens. Oh yeah. Direction number 1. So I'm going to move it over. And kind of eyeball it here. So actually it never does tell me to put it in the car, does it? If I look at probably the directions. But I know that it wants me to, so I'm going to bring it down. Now, a better way to do this would be to hit the letter D on the keyboard and it drops the cylinder to the work plane. Okay? So I'm going to drag it there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next step. And it says that I am done. You are done, son. So this is the end of this lesson. Follow these steps, but do it better than I did. and come back for the next video. Welcome back to Baird Tech Presents. This is Mr. Rocha, and in this lesson we are going to create the air path for our car. Now, if when you get to this step your car did not come over, please go back to the previous step, copy it, and paste it back in here. Okay? So here's my car, and you can see from the last step I didn't connect it properly. So I'm going to connect it properly now. I'm going to zoom out a little, and I'm going to bring it down and I will align it. Nope, I don't want it that way. Oops, I didn't want that to happen, but it did. Let me align it again. Oh, come on now, I just want to align it. There we go. Perspective, remember perspective. Okay. And I'll just I thought I had this grouped, but I guess I didn't. Let me undo it. I don't know what I did. There we go. And I noticed that this happens a lot with Tinkercad recently, where you get a duplicate copy for whatever reason. And I didn't even click on duplicate. There we go. So now it looks like it's centered on there. Pretty darn good. But it's still not touching. So there we go. And now I can see that I'm off a little. So I'm going to change my snap grid to be a little bit more accurate to 0.25. And there we go. And it looks like it's better, but I think it's a design flaw in the lesson. I don't think this should be 23. This bottom one should not be 23. I think it should be 20. So I'm going to readjust it. And maybe I did the dimensions wrong. I probably did. Okay. So I know it took a lot of time in this lesson here to get this straight, but sometimes you have to do that. Okay. So now we're going to create the air hole. Alright. And what it's asking us to do, it's a very simple step. I'm going to move back around here. It's asking us to go and the community shapes. Here it's just called shape generators. And you go to featured. And it'll change in just a second here. Maybe not. There we go. Bent pipe is what it's called. And you bring out the bent pipe. And it says set the outer pipe width to 3 millimeters. So the outer pipe is going to be 3. Now instead of messing with that, I just click inside that and type in 3. Okay. And then it tells you, well, that's not right. Three, enter, okay, that's better. Now looking at the picture, I can see that it's going to have to stand up. So I'm going to make it stand up. Click here, type in 90. Well, maybe I'll undo that and type in -90. There we go. And then I need to rotate it around. Let's just try -90. Haha. Try 90. Okay. And I think it tells us what our bend angle should be. Locate the purple bent pipe, shape it. Yep. Now use the sliders to outer settings to adjust the outer settings and create the air channel. So I'm gonna click on this here, and I'm gonna change the bend angle. It's at a 90. Oops. I'm going to change it to like 45. See what happens. Okay. And I'm going to hit D on the keyboard, bring it up. No, I think I'll change the bend angle a little more. Too much. Well, I guess 90 wouldn't be too bad, now that I think about it. Okay. But here it doesn't look like it's 90. It looks more like it's in the 30s. So let me just try that again. Let's try 30. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to move it over. Very frustrating. I'm going to bring it up. And I'm going to rotate it. Let's rotate it to 45. And I'm going to bring it back. And look at my snap grid. I got to bring it back faster. And I'm using the arrows on the keyboard to move this. And it doesn't really matter the height of this because I'm going to turn it into a hole in the next step. Oh, let me go back. Turn this into a hole. There we go. And then when you group it, how about if you actually group it instead of ungrouping it? And there's your hole. Okay. And you can decide where you want that hole. If you want it to be more centered, you can by ungrouping it. Picking a shape you don't want, bringing it out here, deleting it. Okay. Regroup it. And there you go. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Baird Tech Presents. This is Mr. Rocha. And this is the last step in building the balloon-powered car. In this step, we are going to create wheels for our car. And if we look on the left-hand side, it gives us a picture for which to use as a reference. And it gives us some instructions here. Now, I built mine a little bit differently. Same instructions, but I did tweak mine. If you remember, when I was making my cylinders, I made them rounder. And so in this part of the lesson, I'm going to continue with that, making it rounder by making it 64. And the directions say that we need to place a cylinder on the work plane and size it to 20 millimeters in diameter. That comes out that way already. And make it 10 tall. So I'm going to click here. Now, I have to remember to close this when I'm working on that. And just type in 10 and enter. Now, I notice a lot of students are doing that, they're trying to be accurate, 10.00. This is already typing it or entering it in millimeters, so you just have to type in the number and it's going to put in the decimal point, okay? Unless you're trying to go 10.35, then you put in the decimal point and the other numbers. All right. And it says set your snap grid to 0.5 to size the cylinder to place a second cylinder in the work plane. Place a second cylinder and size it to 10.5 all the way around. So it's going to be 10.5 for the diameter. And a lot of students are asking me, Ms. Rocha, what's the diameter? The diameter is all the way around, right? I think what messes them up is the fact that it comes out with this right here is a square. And like, how can a square have a diameter? It's just showing you the dimensions. Okay, and then this is going to be 10.5. All right. Now, and set the snap grid to 0.5 centimeters to the cylinder. Size the cylinder to, remember to set the grid snap to a 0.5 to size the cylinder to the 10.5. I don't understand that direction. But anyway, all right. Now, again, there we go. Wow, it worked. Okay, so to align them, I have shown you guys two different ways, right? You can draw a selection. So as long as you're touching it, I have to click off things. Okay. Another way is to just click on one object, hold down the Shift key, and select the other object. And then let's align them. And I notice that a lot of students are doing this when they're trying to align. You're like, oh, I can't do it. Yeah, guys, of course you can't do it. Okay. Zoom out so that you can see what you're working on and align them. Don't be afraid. Just do it, right? And group both shapes into a single item and cut the hole through the wheel. So one of these change the second cylinder to a hole. Okay, so the second cylinder was a smaller one, and I'm gonna come up here and click on hole. All right, and remember, to make a hole, you have to group the object together. There's my hole. Okay, now, and then continue to the next step. Now we're gonna make the axle. So I'm gonna bring out another cylinder, and I'm going to make this one 45 tall. Again, just type in 45, enter, and it's going to be the diameter of 10.5. So in this case, I have to hit the decimal point, 10.5, 10.5. All right, and select the cylinder and the wheel and align them vertically. So again, holding down the Shift key, and aligning them. That should be just perfect now. Okay. And then it says select the wheel, duplicate the wheel. So I'm gonna, so annoying. Okay, so I'm gonna duplicate it. I do Control C, Control V, and then I use the arrow keys to move the second one out of the way. And it wants to do it like this, and then connect it and align the wheels. So let me see if I can do it that way. I don't suggest doing it that way, but let's do it that way again. So now I'm going to hold down the shift key, click on the axle, click on the other wheel, and let's see if I can align it. Yeah, no. So disregard what I just did. I'm going to show you what. Go back to this right here. All right. So this is my suggestion. My suggestion is to make this, I'm clicking off of things. I'm going to click on the wheel, and I'm going to click on the axle, and I'm going to group that together. Now, I'm going to hold down the shift key, select the second wheel, and now I'm going to align them together. By grouping that first wheel and axle together, I can, I feel that I can better align that second wheel. All right, and there we go. And since it's already selected so that I can do the alignment, I can automatically group it. And it wants me to go to the next step. And positioning the axle. Okay, so I'm going to just, I broke my own rule. Let me group it again. Okay, I'm going to click here. I'm going to type in 90. And I'm going to hit D on the keyboard. D, the letter D for down. All right, I'm going to orbit around. And again, I'm just using the arrow keys on the keyboard. And I'm going to bring it in like this. Now, I'm going to zoom in here. Why are you being such a pain in the... So I'm going to click here. Okay, so it looks like I have this done correctly. And you'll notice that I'm still not, there's a little bit of a hole there, right? I can click on the car and raise the car. Let me raise the car by 1/10 of a millimeter. Let me get a better angle at it. Okay. I raised it 1 3/10 roughly. But for all of you, it's going to be a little bit different. But okay, so it's there, and oh my God, so annoying. I don't understand it. Okay, all right. So I'm going to hold down the shift key. And I'm going to align it so that it's aligned to the center. The wheels are centered to the body. I'm not really aligning it to the center of the hole that's in there. I'm just aligning it to the center of the car body. All right. And then I'm going to, I need to grab a shape that I don't need and delete it. Alright, so I'm going to click on the wheels and I'm going to copy them. So Control C, Control V to duplicate. Oh, probably move it faster if I. And I'm just using, again, using the arrows on the keyboard. I'm not doing anything special, okay? So there we go. And it's close enough for county work. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to group this together, make it one shape. Okay, now you have completed the car and you're going to get all this confetti. Okay, awesome job. I'm very proud of you. But I want you to keep this car, okay? And so what you do is, I've already done it, but you've grouped it together, and now that it's selected, we copy it. So you can come up here and do Control C, or click on this icon, or do Control C on the keyboard. And then you come up to the Tinkercad dashboard. You see there it says Tinkercad dashboard? You might hear me call it, click on the dashboard. That's what I'm talking about. It's this icon right here, okay? So click on the Tinkercad dashboard. And this is where you can save your own designs. So you click on Create New Design. Anything you make, you want to save here. Any of the lessons that you're working on, this is what you want to do when you're done, when you've completed the lesson. And you paste it. All I did was I came up to the clipboard and clicked on Paste, or Control V. And then I give it a name. So I'm going to just call it rocha.balloon.car. I like dots. Just leave me alone. Don't judge me. All right. And now it is saved. Okay. Now, if you would like me to print this, car, I will gladly print it for you. Okay. But, well, never mind. We'll talk about that later. But so in order to send this to me, you're going to click on Send To. You're going to scroll down, and you're going to invite people. And you're going to generate new link, copy link. And this is the link that you just copied that you will send to me via Teams, by Teams, okay? And I will print it, okay? So, I hope you've enjoyed this. I apologize for taking such a long time to get this lesson out to you guys. Most of you are already done with this car, but hey, better late than never. All right, have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.